The galaxy was in a state of uneasy peace, and the Galactic Council, an alliance of the most advanced species in the universe, had always been the beacon of order and stability. Their influence stretched far and wide, and it was unthinkable to many that anything could disrupt their reign. Yet, in the midst of a high-stakes summit, an unexpected turn of events would change everything. The Council, made up of representatives from various alien species, had gathered to discuss a significant decision: the invitation to Earth to join their ranks. Earth, with its rapidly advancing technology, had become an object of fascination. The Council members assumed that humanity would eagerly accept their offer. After all, joining the Galactic Council would mean power, protection, and prosperity. The Council believed Earth's leaders would not hesitate to align with the most powerful entities in the universe. However, as the summit went on, something strange happened. Humanity's representative, Ambassador Helena Carter, a calm and collected woman, stood up and made an announcement that would stun everyone in the room. "We, the people of Earth, will not be joining the Galactic Council," she said, her voice steady but resolute. The words hung in the air like a sudden shockwave. The room was silent for a long moment, as Council members exchanged confused glances. The decision was not only unexpected but also incomprehensible to many. Why would Earth, a young and relatively inexperienced species, turn down such an offer? The question was on everyone's mind. "What do you mean?" asked the Varrock, the Council's highest-ranking member. His tone was sharp, his alien features betraying confusion and disbelief. "Are you suggesting that humanity is not interested in the power and unity that the Council offers?" Ambassador Carter took a deep breath and responded, "We are not interested in joining an alliance that values control over freedom. Earth has worked too hard to carve its own path in the universe. We will not submit to your rules, your mandates, or your oversight." The room erupted into murmurs. Some were angry, others were skeptical, and a few were simply shocked. The idea of Earth turning its back on the Council was unfathomable to them. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. "You cannot be serious," shouted General Zothrax, a towering warrior from the Telori species. His people had always fought to maintain control, and they viewed the Council as a means to ensure their dominance. "You are nothing more than children. Your species has no experience in the galaxy, and you would turn down protection from the greatest force in the universe." Ambassador Carter remained calm. "We don't need your protection. Earth will stand on its own, and we will face any challenges that come our way. We do not fear your might." The tension in the room grew thicker. Some Council members, especially those who had relied on the power of the Galactic Council to maintain their influence, began to question the wisdom of allowing Earth to remain outside their control. The possibility of a rebellion, or worse, an open conflict, became real. Earth was not a weak, defenseless planet. They had proven that time and time again. Ambassador Carter's words had not only rejected the Council's offer, but also planted the seed of doubt among those who had once believed that their dominance was unquestioned. The Council was now faced with an unexpected challenge. What if Earth, a species they had dismissed as primitive, was truly capable of standing against the Council's will? What if humanity was more resourceful and powerful than they realized? "Your decision is a threat to the peace of the galaxy," Varrock said, his voice low but filled with tension. "You will regret this." Carter's expression hardened, and she turned to face the delegates with unwavering determination. "Then so be it. Humanity will not be intimidated." And with that, the summit ended in chaos. The Council chamber, once filled with the sound of polite conversation and discussions of policy, now became a battleground of opinions and conflicting views. Some delegates argued for an immediate military response, believing that humanity's refusal was an act of defiance that could not be tolerated. Others, more cautious, called for diplomacy and negotiations, though they knew deep down that the situation was far from simple. Back on Earth, the announcement sent shockwaves through the planet. The news spread quickly, and the public's reaction was mixed. Some celebrated the decision, seeing it as a bold stand for Earth's sovereignty and independence. Others feared the consequences of defying the Galactic Council and its immense power. President Alexander, Earth's leader, addressed the world in a live broadcast that night. "We will not bow to anyone. Earth is free, and we will protect our right to choose our future. We are not afraid of what comes next, and we will face any challenge that may arise." The speech stirred the hearts of many, uniting Earth in their resolve. Humanity would not be subjugated to the will of the Galactic Council, no matter what consequences they might face. As the Council began to make plans in response to Earth's bold decision, they were faced with a dilemma. Would they retaliate with force? Would they find another way to bring Earth into the fold? The galaxy held its breath as both sides prepared for the unknown, the tensions escalating with every passing moment. Earth had just ignited the spark that could set the entire galaxy ablaze, and no one, not even the mighty Galactic Council, knew how this unexpected war would unfold. The air was thick with tension across the galaxy. After Earth's shocking announcement at the Galactic Council summit, no one was sure what would happen next. The Council was in turmoil. Once viewed as a powerful and unshakable force, now it seemed as though their authority was on the verge of crumbling. They had underestimated humanity, and the consequences of their arrogance were just beginning to unfold. Within hours of the summit's end, the Council began to divide into factions. Some species, such as the warlike Telori, wanted to make an example of Earth, sending fleets to enforce their will. Others, more diplomatic races, argued that force should not be the immediate response. The divide was deep, and it made the already fragile Council more unstable than ever. In a private chamber, the Galactic Council's highest-ranking members, including Varrock, the leader of the Council, and several others, were gathered in tense conversation. "The humans have made their stance clear," Varrock said, his voice low and filled with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "They've rejected us, and we cannot allow that to go unanswered. If they refuse our protection, we will show them the consequences. But if we strike first, it will set off a chain reaction across the galaxy," warned a voice from the shadows. It belonged to Shira, a representative from the peaceful Tevan species. The Tevan had always been advocates of diplomacy and nonviolence, but even they knew that Earth's sudden withdrawal posed a significant risk. "We must consider the long-term impact. If we attack Earth now, we may lose the support of many systems who still view the Council as a beacon of peace." Varrock's eyes narrowed. "And what do you suggest, Shira? We allow these humans to spit in our faces and walk away scot-free. The Council cannot afford weakness." The debate raged on, but no agreement was reached. In the end, the Council decided to send a covert delegation to Earth, not to attack, but to try one last attempt at negotiation. Their mission was clear: convince Earth to reconsider its decision or face dire consequences. But the humans, with their unpredictability and unyielding pride, had left the Council with no easy options. Back on Earth, the President and the world's leaders were dealing with the aftermath of their bold declaration. The news had spread across the planet like wildfire. Earth was no longer a timid species in the galactic playground. Humanity had made its decision, and there was no turning back. "Mr. President, we need to talk strategy," General Raymond said, standing in front of a large screen displaying various maps and tactical information. The general was a military veteran who had seen numerous battles and crises, but even he was uncertain about how to prepare for the unknown. President Alexander, the calm and composed leader of Earth, didn't flinch. "I understand the gravity of the situation, General, but we mustn't let fear dictate our actions. We have made our stand, and now we must prepare for whatever comes next." The room fell silent as the world's leaders looked to their president. Earth had stood up to the Galactic Council, the most powerful organization in the galaxy. What would the consequences be? Could they withstand the wrath of the Council, or would they be crushed beneath its might? General Raymond spoke again, this time with a grim expression. "We've been preparing for this moment, sir. Our fleets are ready. We have developed weapons that the Council has no knowledge of. If it comes to war, we will not go down without a fight." Earth was not a weak planet. In the years leading up to this moment, humanity had spent countless resources developing new technologies, building an advanced fleet, and strengthening its defenses. They were not the same species the Council had once dismissed as insignificant. Earth had grown stronger, and now it was ready to prove itself. The following days were filled with activity and anticipation. Earth's defense forces were on high alert, and secret meetings were held to discuss plans in the event of an attack. The Council, for its part, was equally busy. Despite their initial shock, they were beginning to formulate a response. A fleet of ships was being prepared, not for open war, but for a show of strength, a diplomatic mission, they said, though everyone knew it was something much more than that. On the galactic scale, however, no one could predict the outcome. What started as an unexpected diplomatic conflict was quickly turning into something much larger. The question that lingered was no longer just whether Earth would reconsider its decision, but whether the Council could survive this crisis. As tensions mounted, it became clear that this wasn't just a struggle for influence over a single planet. It was a battle for control, for dominance in the galaxy. And at the center of it all were the humans, standing firm in their belief that they did not need the Council's protection, nor did they want its influence. As Earth prepared for what might be an impending conflict, its people remained united in their determination. They would stand against any threat, and they would do so on their own terms. The stage was set, and both sides, Earth and the Galactic Council, were preparing for what could be the most significant event in the history of the galaxy. The question now wasn't just how Earth would react to the Council's retaliation, but whether the Council was ready to face a humanity that had finally found its strength. The stakes were higher than ever, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The tensions in the galaxy were palpable, and the countdown to the Galactic Council's response was ticking. Earth had made its decision. Humanity had rejected the Council's offer, and now the consequences of that decision were drawing near. But while the Galactic Council was preparing for its next move, humanity, despite its defiance, was also taking its own steps to prepare. Across Earth, there were mixed feelings about the Council's potential retaliation. Many citizens were united in their support of their planet's independence, seeing the decision to walk away from the Council as a bold, defining moment in human history. Others, however, were uneasy. The Galactic Council was known for its power, its reach, and its overwhelming influence across the galaxy. Could Earth truly stand against such a force? Inside the United Nations, President Alexander stood in front of a massive map of the galaxy, his expression hard. Around him were the world's most brilliant military and diplomatic minds, each analyzing data and formulating possible outcomes. The room was filled with tension, but it was a calm, calculated tension. No one could afford to panic. "Mr. President," General Raymond spoke up, his voice steady. "We've intercepted signals indicating that the Council is preparing a delegation to Earth. It's unclear whether they come in peace or with aggression, but we can't afford to take any chances." President Alexander nodded solemnly. "We'll be ready for them. Prepare all fleets for defensive maneuvers. And I want the world's leaders on standby for any diplomatic talks, if they are still willing to negotiate. However, we will not beg." Outside Earth, the Galactic Council's fleet moved steadily toward the planet, its ships massive and imposing. They were a reminder of the Council's strength and resources. Each vessel was equipped with technology far beyond Earth's current understanding, but this did not faze humanity. Earth had its own tricks, secrets hidden from the galactic eye. At the heart of the Galactic Council's fleet, an elite group of ambassadors and military leaders were preparing to descend upon Earth. They had been instructed to remain calm, to offer humanity one last chance to reconsider. But their eyes were cold, and their minds were set. They would not let Earth reject them without consequences. The leader of the delegation, Ambassador Zoreth, was a towering figure, his race known for their cold precision and unyielding power. He was well aware of the stakes, and his orders were clear. But deep down, Zorath was also wary. He had been part of the initial discussions when Earth was first discovered. Humanity had been seen as nothing more than a primitive species, but the world had changed. Earth had grown stronger, faster than anyone had anticipated. Ambassador Zorath, one of his aides, said, "The fleet is ready. The delegation is prepared to land on Earth's surface. But we must remember, we cannot be weak. If they continue to refuse us, we must show them the consequences." Zorath turned to face his aide, his eyes narrow. "I am well aware of that, Salrith, but we must also remember that Earth is not a species to be underestimated. We have underestimated them before. We cannot afford that mistake again." The fleet's approach to Earth was met with heavy anticipation. Earth's defenses were heightened, and the planet watched in silence as the delegation entered the system. News broadcasts across the globe showed images of the incoming ships, their advanced technology making Earth's own defenses look like mere toys in comparison. However, the people of Earth were resolute. They had made their decision, and they would stand by it. As the Council's ships descended toward Earth's atmosphere, a strange calm settled over the planet. Everyone knew that what came next would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Would the Galactic Council back down, or would Earth be forced to fight for its survival? Meanwhile, in the highest chambers of the Galactic Council's ship, Ambassador Zorath stared at Earth's growing presence on the view screen. The humans had made their decision. But did they truly understand what they had just done? The doors to the council chamber opened, and Zorath's aide stepped in. "Ambassador, the delegation is ready. We are prepared to land at Earth's designated meeting site." Zorath stood tall. "Very well. Let's go. But remember, our mission is clear. We give them one final chance. If they refuse to join us, they will face the full might of the Council." The delegation made its way to Earth's surface, and the world's eyes were fixed on the skies. The fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy would soon be decided in this final confrontation. On Earth's surface, military leaders, diplomats, and ordinary citizens alike stood by, waiting. This was the moment. The Galactic Council's delegation had arrived, and whatever happened next would determine whether humanity would join the Council's ranks, or whether it would be forced to face the consequences of its actions. The moment of truth had arrived. The massive ships of the Galactic Council hovered above Earth, casting shadows over cities and landscapes below. The eyes of every human on the planet were on the skies, waiting for the first sign of contact. For some, it felt like the end of an era, the culmination of years of anticipation, hope, and fear. For others, it was the beginning of something they couldn't even begin to understand. Ambassador Zorath and his delegation had landed. The sight of the ships touching down was awe-inspiring, their immense size dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. The landing zone was a massive, secure area outside the capital city, protected by layers of defense and advanced technology. Every inch of the area was under scrutiny, every movement analyzed by the best Earth had to offer. Military personnel and government officials stood in a tight formation, waiting for the arrival of the Galactic Council's representatives. Zorath and his team disembarked from the ships in a show of overwhelming authority, their presence making it clear that they held power. They were greeted by Earth's highest-ranking officials, standing in a formation that was meticulously arranged, each person trying to maintain their composure in the face of such an intimidating presence. Zorath's eyes scanned the humans before him. The humans were small in comparison, but their defiance was something he had not expected. He had thought they might cower before the Council, eager to join. But here they were, standing firm, showing no signs of fear. He had underestimated them, and that realization did not sit well with him. The first human to speak was President Alexander, the leader of Earth's unified government. He stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. He had spent years preparing for this day, understanding that it would not be an easy conversation. Earth had made its decision, and now he would have to defend it, no matter the cost. Ambassador Zoreth, President Alexander began, his voice steady but strong. I welcome you to Earth. However, I must make one thing clear. We are not here to join your council. Our decision to walk away was made for the future of humanity. We will not be swayed by promises or threats. Zoreth's gaze sharpened. He had expected resistance, but not this level of firmness. You speak of a future, human, but your future is limited. The Galactic Council offers peace, unity, and advancement. You turn your back on all of this. Why? We turn our back because we do not need to join your council to thrive, President Alexander replied. We have the will, the creativity, and the resources to build our own path. We will not let our future be dictated by others. Zoreth's expression darkened. This was not the response he had hoped for. He had thought humanity would be eager to accept the terms offered to them, to join the vast network of advanced species that the Galactic Council represented. But Earth's refusal to submit, its outright rejection, was something entirely new. Very well, Zoreth said after a tense pause. But understand this, human. The Galactic Council does not tolerate rejection. You will feel the consequences of your actions. As he spoke those words, the atmosphere seemed to shift. A subtle, but undeniable, tension filled the air. It was a moment of no return, a line in the sand that had been drawn. The Council's ships loomed above, a reminder of the vast power they controlled. But Earth was not afraid. We will not be threatened, President Alexander responded firmly. We are prepared to face whatever comes. Earth stands alone, but we are strong, and we will fight for our right to choose our own destiny. Zoreth's gaze lingered on the human leader, measuring his resolve. He had dealt with countless species, each one eager to join the council for the benefits it offered. Yet here was Earth, resilient, determined, and unwilling to bend. For a moment, he almost admired the human's tenacity. But admiration would not change the Council's goals. They would have to force humanity's compliance. Then be prepared, Zoreth said coldly. The Council will not tolerate defiance. With that, the delegation turned and walked back toward their ships, their minds already focused on the next steps. As the humans watched, a sense of foreboding filled the air. What would the Galactic Council do next? Would they unleash their power on Earth? Or would the humans be forced to prove their strength in ways they had never imagined? Back on Earth, the leaders gathered in secret. The Council's warning had been clear, and now it was time for humanity to respond. The world's military was on high alert, but the question remained. Could Earth stand up to the full might of the Galactic Council, or would humanity be crushed under the weight of their refusal? As the days passed, tensions grew. The Galactic Council had made its move, but humanity had made its choice. The story of Earth's defiance was just beginning, and the outcome was uncertain. Would Earth's determination be enough to withstand the galactic storm that was coming? Or would the humans find themselves at the mercy of a force far beyond their understanding? Only time would tell. In the days following the tense confrontation, Earth's leadership found itself under an intense strain. President Alexander and the world's council members convened in secret meetings, analyzing every possible outcome. The tension in the air was palpable. Humanity had just made a decision that could have far-reaching consequences. The full weight of their refusal to join the Galactic Council was beginning to sink in, and with it, the looming threat of retribution. The Galactic Council's warning had been clear, but it was more than just words. Earth now faced the reality that the most powerful alliance in the galaxy could strike at any moment. Despite this, there was a growing sense of unity among Earth's leaders. The refusal to bow before an outside authority had sparked a flame of pride within humanity. They had made a stand, and they were determined to hold their ground. The first few days after the confrontation were filled with uncertainty. The Council's ships still hovered above Earth, massive and foreboding, but no direct action had been taken. It was as if the Council was waiting for something, perhaps another sign of weakness, or maybe an attempt to negotiate. But there was no sign of fear from humanity. The world's governments quickly moved to fortify Earth's defenses, activating advanced technology and enhancing military readiness. It was clear that they would need to prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, the eyes of the galaxy were on Earth. Other alien species, who had watched with skepticism, now began to take notice. They had seen humanity's defiance, and some even began to question whether the Galactic Council had miscalculated. In many ways, humanity had made a statement that rippled across the galaxy. Earth would not be pushed around. On the other side, the Galactic Council was in disarray. Their initial shock at Earth's rejection had faded into frustration and anger. Ambassador Zoreth, who had been part of the initial delegation, returned to the Council's headquarters, only to find his own position questioned. There were whispers among the Council members. Some of them, particularly the more conservative factions, were beginning to wonder if Earth's rejection was part of a larger strategy. Had they underestimated humanity? Had they misread their intentions? Zoreth knew that the Council's reaction would have to be swift and overwhelming. The Council had no room for weakness, and humanity's defiance was the ultimate challenge to their authority. But there was also a sense of hesitation. The galaxy's most powerful races had seen the destruction caused by prolonged conflict before, and some were wary of risking all-out war. It wasn't just about proving power anymore. It was about maintaining control. Back on Earth, a different kind of energy was stirring. While the government focused on defense strategies and military readiness, there were those among the population who had a different vision. A wave of innovation and invention surged across the planet. Engineers, scientists, and creative minds began working feverishly, pushing the limits of human ingenuity. Humanity had always been resourceful, but now, with the threat of the Galactic Council looming, the stakes had never been higher. In the shadow of the Council's ships, a network of underground organizations began to form. These were groups not just focused on survival, but on using the crisis as an opportunity to advance human technology. They were determined to show the galaxy that Earth was no longer a fledgling planet. Earth had grown, learned, and adapted at an alarming rate. The Council might have underestimated them, but they would soon see what humanity was capable of. While these efforts were taking place behind closed doors, the media across Earth broadcasted a message of unity and defiance. President Alexander addressed the world, reaffirming the planet's commitment to independence. His words rang through every household, resonating with people everywhere. "We will stand united against any threat," he declared. "Humanity will not be dictated to. We will fight for our future, and we will decide our destiny." And with those words, the world seemed to breathe as one. There were no more divisions between nations or species on Earth, just a singular resolve to face the future together. But despite this newfound strength, the specter of the Galactic Council's power still loomed large. Earth's military might had never been tested on such a scale, and it wasn't clear whether their defensive technologies could stand against the overwhelming forces that might soon descend upon them. As the days passed, the atmosphere became thicker with anticipation. The Council's ships remained in orbit, their presence a constant reminder of the galaxy's most powerful factions watching. But as time wore on, something unexpected began to happen. The Council's position grew increasingly erratic. Some factions pushed for diplomacy, even pleading with Zoreth to find a peaceful resolution. Others called for swift retaliation, believing that Earth's defiance would spark rebellion across the galaxy. Zoreth, who had initially been so confident in the Council's ability to crush any opposition, now found himself torn. The Council's unity was beginning to crack, and he feared that this uncertainty would be humanity's greatest weapon. Earth had created a new kind of power, one that came from its unity and its sheer unwillingness to be controlled. Zoreth wasn't sure how much longer the Council could afford to ignore this shift. The countdown to confrontation had begun, but no one, on either side, knew what would come next. Would the Galactic Council risk a devastating war over a single planet? Or would humanity, against all odds, show the galaxy that it could stand alone and thrive. The storm was coming, and no one was ready for the chaos that would follow. The days turned into weeks, and still, the Galactic Council's ships remained hovering above Earth. While the human governments continued to fortify their defenses, the uncertainty of the situation weighed heavily on the global population. Was the Council planning to invade? Or was this just another show of force to make humanity rethink its stance? No one knew for sure, but the tension was palpable everywhere. On Earth, the innovation that had begun to surge in response to the crisis had transformed into a full-scale effort. Scientists, engineers, and tech experts from all around the world had come together to create new defense technologies, pushing the boundaries of what humanity thought was possible. The world's military leaders worked tirelessly with civilians to design weapons capable of combating the overwhelming power of the Galactic Council. New energy shields, devastating railguns, and even prototypes for spacecraft capable of leaving Earth's atmosphere at unimaginable speeds began to take shape. Humanity's response was swift and impressive. Yet, despite this progress, there were still moments of doubt. President Alexander's speeches, though powerful, couldn't quiet the whispers of uncertainty that echoed across the planet. Would humanity really be able to hold its own against a galactic empire so far beyond their level of technology? Were the Council's ships simply waiting for Earth to surrender, or was there something more sinister at play? Across the galaxy, the members of the Galactic Council were grappling with similar questions. The once unified front of the Council had begun to splinter. The alien species that had initially agreed to Earth's rejection being treated as a non-issue were now starting to look at the situation through different eyes. Some viewed humanity's defiance as a show of strength, something that might lead to future rebellion across the galaxy if not dealt with decisively. Others, however, saw Earth's independence as an opportunity to pivot, to perhaps allow humanity its autonomy, provided certain conditions were met. A growing division began to form in the Council, one faction advocating for harsh retaliation, while the other began to question the wisdom of such a course. Ambassador Zoreth, still loyal to the Council's orders, but increasingly disturbed by the cracks in its unity, watched these developments with growing concern. He was no longer sure of the Council's next move. His mission had been to bring Earth into the fold, but the humans' unexpected departure from the negotiations had thrown everything off course. Now, his leaders were divided, and the very stability of the Council was in jeopardy. Zoreth returned to his home planet briefly, seeking guidance from his people. He consulted with his closest advisors, trying to make sense of the growing chaos within the Council. There, in the shadows of the ancient halls of his species' ruling elite, he heard whispers that spoke of far greater stakes than a simple diplomatic failure. Some spoke of Earth's potential as a wild card, a force that might disrupt the established order of the galaxy. Could humanity, in its stubbornness, become a symbol of freedom, a spark that ignited rebellion? Zoreth was not sure, but it was a possibility that haunted him. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that Earth's refusal might be a turning point in the galaxy's history. Back on Earth, the tension continued to grow. Humanity's preparations were moving forward, but the question of whether these efforts would be enough still lingered. Military leaders reported successful trials of new weapons and defense systems, but they all knew that facing the Council's fleet in battle would be something entirely different. Earth's population was united in their defiance, but were they truly prepared for what might come? As President Alexander addressed the world once again, he echoed a sentiment that had become central to humanity's resolve. We will not submit. We will not bow to anyone, no matter how powerful they may be. We stand for freedom, and we will defend that freedom with everything we have. His words, while powerful, did little to quiet the growing concern. Despite the overwhelming unity among humanity, there were always voices that questioned if Earth's efforts could truly withstand the might of the Galactic Council. The anticipation of what was to come built each day, and the galaxy itself seemed to be holding its breath. Amid the chaos, a shadowy figure known only as the Architect began to surface. Little was known about this mysterious individual, but rumors swirled that the architect was a former member of Earth's top-secret military programs. With their expertise, Earth had been developing new technologies at an astonishing rate, creating weapons that could rival some of the most advanced alien technologies. Some believed the architect was the mastermind behind Earth's newfound technological progress, while others speculated that they were the one who had coordinated the underground resistance to the Galactic Council. No one knew for sure, but the architect had become a symbol of hope for many. His name was whispered in every corner of the planet, a beacon of potential against the looming storm. Could this mysterious figure truly help humanity hold its ground against a galactic empire? As Earth's fate hung in the balance, the stage was set for the next confrontation. Would humanity's preparations be enough to withstand the might of the Galactic Council? Or would Earth fall, crushed beneath the weight of the galaxy's power? The clock was ticking, and the galaxy's most powerful forces were moving closer to the breaking point. The storm was gathering. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, was about to be decided. The Galactic Council's fleet hovered just outside Earth's atmosphere, a constant reminder that the time for diplomacy was rapidly running out. On Earth, the preparations continued in full force. Every nation, every city, every person had a role to play in the defense of their planet. The citizens of Earth, who had once been divided by borders, were now united by a singular goal: to protect their home from an alien empire that had underestimated them. Despite the fear that permeated the air, there was a growing sense of pride among humanity. They had refused to bow, and they would stand strong. President Alexander stood before the United Nations Assembly, his voice unwavering as he addressed the world's leaders. "We have prepared. We have made our stand. Now we must face what comes with courage in our hearts. We will not yield, no matter the cost." In the days that followed, Earth's new defense systems were tested to their limits. The newly developed energy shields were put through rigorous simulations, and the railguns that had been designed to repel the incoming ships fired with terrifying precision. The prototype spacecraft, capable of leaving Earth's atmosphere in mere seconds, were now fully operational, and humanity was ready for the conflict that they knew was coming. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was in turmoil. The factions within the Council had reached a boiling point. The once unified front had fractured, with some calling for an all-out assault on Earth, while others still believed there was a chance for peaceful resolution. Ambassador Zoreth, who had once believed in the Council's mission to bring Earth into the fold, now found himself questioning everything he had been taught. The unity that once existed within the Council was crumbling, and it was all because of one thing: humanity's refusal to submit. Zoreth, now deeply conflicted, stood in the Council chambers, staring at the large holographic map of Earth. The fleet's formation had been set, the countdown to the attack had begun, but there was still a part of him that could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans, with their relentless resolve and unexpected technological advancements, had thrown everything into disarray. The Council had underestimated them, and now they were facing the possibility of a devastating war, one that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. In the quiet of his private chambers, Zoreth pondered his options. Could the Council win this war, or would humanity's unexpected strength force them to reconsider? He had been an ambassador, a servant of the Council's will, but now he was unsure of his place in this conflict. Could he, in good conscience, follow through with the destruction of Earth? As the final days before the attack drew near, Zoreth's doubts grew. He had witnessed humanity's ingenuity firsthand. They had turned their backs on the Council, not because they were weak, but because they had something stronger: pride, unity, and a belief in their own destiny. Zoreth had heard the rumors of the mysterious architect, someone who was shaping humanity's defenses in ways the Council never anticipated. The architect's name was whispered in hushed tones on every planet, and his efforts had become the stuff of legend. But even with these new technologies and the will of its people, Earth still faced overwhelming odds. The Galactic Council's fleet was massive, its weaponry far superior to anything Earth had developed. The Council had the power to crush humanity in an instant, but there was something that the Council had failed to account for: humanity's willingness to fight for its survival. On the eve of the final battle, the entire world watched in a mix of dread and determination as the countdown to war ticked closer. The leaders of Earth had made their final speeches, rallying the people to stand strong. The last of the preparations were completed, and humanity's defenses were fully in place. Now there was nothing left to do but wait. The calm before the storm was thick with anticipation. All across Earth, people gathered in front of screens, watching the sky, waiting for the first sign that the war was about to begin. Families huddled together, clinging to each other, while soldiers stood at the ready, prepared to defend their world at all costs. The Galactic Council's fleet, massive and ominous, loomed above Earth. The time had come to decide the fate of the planet. Would the Council unleash its wrath, or would humanity's resilience force them to reconsider? The silence was broken only by the sound of engines roaring to life as Earth's ships took to the skies, ready to meet the Council in battle. Humanity was no longer simply fighting for survival. They were fighting for their right to exist. The clash between the two forces was imminent, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. As the first shots were fired, a sense of hope surged through the hearts of the people of Earth. They had made it this far, and they would not go down without a fight. The war had begun, the battle for Earth had begun. As the first volley of fire echoed across the skies, humanity's resolve was put to the ultimate test. The Galactic Council's fleet, vast and powerful, loomed over the planet like a dark cloud. But humanity, armed with their innovative technologies and an unyielding spirit, was ready to fight back. The human defense forces had never faced anything like the Galactic Council's warships, but they had something the Council did not: unity. For the first time in history, the people of Earth were standing together as one, regardless of nationality, race, or background. Every person had a role to play in the defense of their world. Civilians, scientists, engineers, and soldiers, everyone contributed to the effort in their own way. This was a fight not just for survival, but for their right to remain free. In the depths of space, the battle was fierce. Earth's ships, equipped with energy shields and advanced railguns, clashed with the formidable warships of the Council. Explosions lit up the sky as Earth's fleet maneuvered with surprising agility, outmatching the Council's expectations. The technology that the Council had dismissed as primitive now proved to be a formidable force. The Earth had created its own weapons, its own defenses, and they were now being tested in the crucible of war. Zoreth, who had once believed in the invincibility of the Galactic Council, found himself watching the battle unfold in disbelief. His fleet, the pride of the Council, was being pushed back by humanity's unexpected strength. The humans fought with a passion that was impossible to ignore. Each ship that fell, each casualty that mounted, only made them fight harder. On the battlefield, President Alexander stood at the heart of the command center, overseeing the fight from a series of monitors. His face was grim but determined. There was no turning back now. He watched as the human forces executed flawless tactics, hitting weak points in the Council's fleet, overwhelming them with unexpected strategies that they had never anticipated. "We can win this," he said quietly to his closest advisors. "We have no choice but to fight until the end." The war raged on, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Earth's forces faced an uphill battle, but they were not without hope. The architect, the mysterious figure behind humanity's unexpected military strength, had sent his designs to the front lines. Each new weapon, each new system, gave Earth's forces an edge. It was not just technology that drove humanity's fight. It was their spirit, their refusal to give in, no matter the odds. As the battle unfolded in space, Earth's forces turned the tide. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their victory, was now scrambling to hold their ground. Earth's fleet was small, but it was quick, efficient, and relentless. They fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of their entire world rested on this moment. Zorath, now a broken man, watched from his command ship. He had seen the Council's best warriors fall, their ships destroyed by the very humans they had once underestimated. The Council's leadership, once unified in its belief in their superiority, was now fractured. There were those who were calling for an immediate retreat, but Zorath knew that would be a sign of weakness. The decision to fight was no longer in his hands. It was in the hands of the Galactic Council. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a mistake. He had underestimated humanity's power, their will to fight for their survival. Back on Earth, the battle was far from over. Every city, every person, every soldier was doing their part. The fight had reached its peak, and the humans had pushed the Council to the brink of defeat. The Galactic Council, once a mighty force, now seemed fragile and vulnerable. Earth's forces were relentless. The energy shields held firm, and the railguns continued to fire, taking down enemy ships one by one. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. As the final hour approached, the fate of Earth seemed all but certain. The Galactic Council had been defeated. It was not a victory won through sheer firepower, but through the indomitable will of humanity. The story of their survival would be one for the ages, a testament to the resilience, creativity, and determination of a species that had once been considered insignificant by the rest of the galaxy. The Galactic Council, their fleet broken and their forces scattered, called for a ceasefire. Zorath's voice echoed through the communications channels as he spoke to Earth's leaders. "We surrender. We were wrong. You are not a primitive species. You are more than we could have ever imagined." The humans, who had fought so hard, paused. For a moment, there was silence. Then a wave of triumph. They had done it. Against all odds, they had not only survived, but they had won. The Galactic Council, in its arrogance, had underestimated the power of humanity. And now, the galaxy would know that Earth was not to be taken lightly. As the war came to an end, Earth began to rebuild, stronger than ever. The message was clear. Humanity was not just a player in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Council, now forced to reckon with Earth's newfound strength, would never forget the day that humans walked away from their negotiations, and the day that they proved the galaxy had underestimated them.